You need to put a press-in bearing in your Subaru Forester. This is the bearing that needs to be pressed out. We need to remove this somehow, which can present a problem because of rust. A lot of times you can't get the suspension bolts apart to do it the way that you should. So I've invented a few ways to do it without having to do that and destroy suspension component. The key point on this whole job is getting that CV shaft out of that hole. Disconnect these lateral arms right here. Whole knuckle will go out this way, and as it comes out this way, you can get your shaft to slide out. This rod will rust into here, and a lot of times what happens is you can't even remove this bolt. If that method doesn't work, another method, take this center differential and just lower the whole thing down. Those output CV axles will slide out of one side or the other. You could do them both at the same time, or you could just leave that one in and just do one at a time, which is what I usually do. Exhaust has to come down because the exhaust is underneath the CV shaft. To disconnect the drive shaft, you gotta take out all these bolts, take out all these bolts, take out these top two studs, and then put this on a transmission jack, and then you just drop it down nice and slow. So that works quite well. I got the rod to spin, but this bushing right here is rusted right to that bolt. This side's coming out, no problem. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this sway bar link. Toe adjustment here, I'm going to mark this bolt on both the inside and the outside. And this is just a dust seal, but this rides kind of on the CV shaft. And then this is the actual seal. This is a center seal, and this seals right on the race of the CV shaft. You definitely want to replace both these seals when replacing the wheel bearing. We need access to the race of the wheel bearing. By pressing on this, we can push the whole bearing out. So this is going to push on the actual race. We're going to push the whole thing that direction, and the whole bearing will slide right out. You're gonna pry this up a little bit with one, and then once you get this other screwdriver underneath, then you can start to kind of get this out of there. Safety glasses is a must right here because I've seen these things go flying. And these are all the spacers that you use to pile onto this big bolt with a nut on the end and then push a bearing out or push a bearing in of a knuckle or spindle. And then these are also some spacers, and then also these spacers. So let's try this stuff right here. I think that's going to be close. Bingo! Alright, so now you just piece it together. Spin your fastener on, and then line it all up. Now that that's on, we're going to drive that out. That's how you press a bearing out. See that one? So that roller is basically grinding on the race. Burnelling or spalling they call it, right on that roller. So that one's toast too. And just by the font, I don't recognize that. I'm gonna say that's a overseas bearing of some sort. How you know you got a good bearing? There's your part number, Koyo, whatever, JA pan. Oh, we need to match these seals up. Here's an outer, inner, center. If you're interested, here's the seal part number. And from 2123003, and we're going to use this spacer. It's just barely smaller than that race, so it'll fit into the hub, and we can push. We'll take this face of the spacer and we'll push on this outer ring of the bearing, not this actual inner bearing. The way to do that is because of that space right there, we have to pull the actual bearing out while doing this process. The key is you have to leave the inner in. Everything looks good and smooth. There's a nice shoulder in there. Found a spacer that will ride on that lip. It rides on this outer lip right here. So we are going to push against that, or pull against that, whatever you want to call it, and we're going to pull the bearing into this bore from the outside, and it's going to come right up against this lip, and that's where it's going to stop. Because we can't get this bearing past that lip, this bearing must be installed right now. We can't install the outer bearing once this outer race is installed into that knuckle. So we're going to install it in this direction. Putting this in there. Take our threaded rod and our bolt. Put that through. We're going to use our spacer that we pre-fitted to that bearing race earlier on the outside. Just want to make sure that bearing's straight. A little off there, so we'll just loosen it up and tighten it up here. Now when you get close to it being seated, you'll see that the fastener will stop spinning pretty abruptly, and that's how you know you've got it seated all the way in. So just keep an eye on this. You'll know you'll hear it and you'll see it. So that's seated. I'm basically forcing it at this stage of the game if I keep going. So now I'm just going to... Alright, the actual bearing is installed. And this should just slide right out. And our inside bearing is still intact. Snap ring down to size a little bit. And hold on to it with your thumb and wear safety glasses because this can spring right out of here. Just gotta pry this last little lip in and then just kind of push it. So next you want to put your inner bearing or your outer bearing in. You gotta put your seal in. So this is the only side we're gonna assemble the seal right now. You just give it a little tap here. Perfect. So that seal rides right here on this surface. There's some marks there, but there's no grooves to speak of, so that won't have any trouble sealing. And then this surface is what presses into the bearing, and that feels smooth too. So I don't see any problem here. We're gonna press this through the bearing. So out here is pretty easy to see. We're just gonna put a spacer that fits over top of here. Pretty much anything will do. I just grabbed one. Any size will work. And that's probably what we're gonna do, just something like that. So just something to press on the actual hub. Now the inside one is definitely critical, but use this spacer to push against this inner bearing race only. On the inside, we want to use this flat side only because the shaft is going to come through this bearing and it's going to come flush with that race. So because it's going to come flush, we want to make sure we use the flat side so it doesn't, because otherwise if we use this cone side, you won't be able to press the bearing in fully. So we want to make sure we use the flat side. Put our bolt in. And that's just for that lip of that seal. There's a little crevice there, so you can actually shove it down in there. When it comes to grease and wheel bearings or ball joints, the more the merrier. Like that. There's not enough depth. So in that case, what you do is you just run the tool in here to get it started, and we'll put that spacer on in a minute. And you kind of wiggle it, snug it up, and it pretty much goes straight. Once we pull it in all the way, it will be straight. It'll spin true. Alright, we got our spacers in, bolts in, seals in, bearings in, here we go. I probably could have kept going there. I don't want to ruin my tool. This tool is quite handy. It's been used a lot, but I think it's also got a lot of life left in it. So I want to use it the way it was intended. I don't want to destroy this thing. Because pushing on that hub with just that nut and no washer could definitely start to mar up the surfaces a little bit. So we'll just stop and start here again. And here we go. Hear that stop? Noise difference. Same as when we press the bearing in for the hub. It's the same situation. This will slow down and stop spinning, and you'll hear a very different noise. And that tells you it's pressed in all the way. So we're done. Yeah, this should spin pretty good. It does. It's silent, very silent. Well, I have my earplugs in too. Nice and silent. Everything's good. Smooth. Doesn't quite come flush, but it comes close. So you can see why you need to use that spacer flat end to push on this hub. Put this seal in. The inner one doesn't obviously have a lot of pressure, so it ain't gonna take much to get her in there. But basically you just push it until it stops going. There's no preset depth on this guy. It basically just goes right up to the race landing, the other side of it. Just kind of hand press that one in. You got the old finger gauge there. So this inner seal, you actually put it in kind of backwards with this part showing the outside. You see that seal has a bevel. You see this has a bevel. That's not where it's designed to seal. It's got to sit more inboard because you got the inner seal that's trying to ride right here. So and you can see the witness marks. It just kind of starts by hand. Two inner seals, an outer seal, the hub, it's all pressed together. Oh yeah, don't forget to put a little grease on those inner bearing seals. Gives them a fighting chance to seal and be lubricated. Not the ideal way to install a rear bearing, but it is a way. The problem is rust, so you gotta find ways around it. Usually I drop the rear axle because I can't even get that loose at all. So, but I like to try to see if I can get it loose, because if you can get this bolt out and get these arms to drop or whatever, the whole thing is not bad at all. I mean, it's technical because you gotta press a lot of things, but it's totally doable. Hopefully I shed some light and helped you do them quicker, better, faster. Take care.